Hey, what up, fam? One of the things that I've seen over and over and over again is that people are just stuck in their marriage, and not stuck because they want to stay stuck, but just stuck because they got some strongholds that are getting in the way and that are holding them back. I mean, things that are keeping them stuck, things that are keeping them stagnant, and sometimes things that are keeping them stepping out in their marriage and not staying plugged in. And so today I'm going to talk about that 7 strongholds that keep you stagnant and stuck in your marriage. So one of the things that we all know about is childhood trauma. This is definitely a stronghold that's got a number of folks stuck. And I'm lifting this piece up because, again, if you don't pay attention to it, if you don't address it, if you run away from it, then the reality is that you're going to keep on running right back into it. And so when it comes to your childhood stuff, whether you got issues pertaining to abandonment, whether you got issues pertaining to abuse, whether you got parentification issues that might be present, like these things definitely had an impact. And for a number of people, like what ends up happening is that they get layers upon layers upon layers of scars. And it ends up building into a threshold of thickness, tolerance, and an inability to connect emotionally. And as a result, like it impacts the relationship. And so definitely unresolved childhood trauma is a significant stronghold that I would say that impacts people in their marriage. I mean, I've seen it in the couples that I work with, that when it comes to men having challenges and expressing their thoughts, expressing their feelings, when it comes to women having challenges, expressing their thoughts and feelings, connecting in on an intimate level, depending upon like what your attachment style is, whether it's anxious avoidance, securely attached, you can find yourself in a place where, again, you're not leaning into a process of elevating in the area of intimacy. And so I've seen childhood trauma, unresolved wounds, childhood wounds, adverse childhood experiences impact somebody in their marriage. And so, this right here can be a stronghold. And it's important that you pay attention to it and do the work that's needed in order for you to heal and be able to connect it in the way in which you say that you want to connect. The second thing that I want to lift up is, a number of people are dealing with this issue right here. And I mentioned it briefly, a moment ago when I talked about childhood trauma and depending upon what your attachment style is, but emotional avoidance is the second thing. The second thing is emotional avoidance. And so, when it comes to you being in a marriage and depending upon how you were raised, you may not have seen situations in which your parents were the most lovey-dovey, or they may even showed affection towards you. You might not have had that experience. But even with that being said, like, what is the expectation inside of your marriage? What's the expectation from your spouse? What is their love language? And so if you find yourself in a marriage where you're with somebody who had a securely attached environment when they were growing up, and as a result, they're looking for a certain level of openness, a certain level of vulnerability, a certain level of connectedness, and you're unable to provide that, based off of the fact that it wasn't modeled for you, based off of the reality that you didn't experience it, then what ends up happening is that, you find yourself in a space where you're emotionally avoiding him or avoiding her. And there's a ripple effect to the marriage. And so if you pull back, then after your partner makes a decision that they're going to choose to lean in, but if they see you pulling back over and over and over again, that could lead to a place where they end up starting to pull back as well. So you got this whole emotional avoidance dance that's taking place. You got a pursuer, then you have a retreater. A pursuer, you have a withdrawer. And, the pursuer is going to pursue, but eventually, depending upon your level of pullback and your level of withdrawal, if there's emotional avoidance and withdrawal in the marriage, then again, there's a ripple effect, and they may choose to do so as well. And so you may be on the flip side. I don't know. You may be on the flip side in which you're the one that's actually pursuing and your spouse is withdrawing. How does that feel? How does that feel to you? And so again, you probably have made some decisions to pull back based off of how you experienced them. And so emotional avoidance can show up in that dance where you do have the pursuer and the withdrawer, but it can also show up in a way in which, like when you do engage, you're not going deep. You're not expressing the realness behind your thoughts and feelings. You're staying real surface. One of the things that I've seen over and over again is that, when couples have been in a relationship for an extended period of time, they start to give surface responses. It's like you're surfacing your man, you're surfacing your woman. And so what I mean by that is everything is good, fine, cool, it's all right. I'm chilling. You're giving surface words and you're not necessarily using your emotional vocabulary to express where you are. So there's a wide range of words that you can use. This is something that I talk about with the men all the time, all the time. And real talk, it's not something that's easy to do because there may be limitations as it pertains to our vocabulary as men because of what we experienced when we were growing up around expressing emotionality. But that doesn't mean that we don't have the capacity. So we got to stretch. We definitely got to stretch and do better. So emotional avoidance isn't just a man thing. It's a woman thing too. And again, it's important that you pay attention to it because this stronghold of emotional avoidance will definitely keep your marriage stuck, stagnant, and yeah, it's definitely a problem, y'all. So please pay attention to that. One other stronghold that for many is an obvious stronghold, but depending upon like how you grew up and what you were exposed to, a lot of this stuff, stems from childhood experiences, whether you felt like you were restricted, inhibited, and when you did turn of age, you started to go buck wild and you started to explore and experience some things, like there was a certain level of freedom attached to that. And so one of those areas in which you may have experienced a certain level of freedom is as it pertains to sex and intimacy. And I'm speaking specifically of the stronghold of pornography. Like sex and intimacy in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's not. It's a beautiful thing. It really is. It's a wonderful thing. But the stronghold of pornography can be damaging to your marriage. Hey, what up, fam? I've been in a relationship with the same woman for almost 30 years. We've been married for over 20. And I'm not sharing this with you to impress you, but to impress upon you that I ain't new to this. I'm true to this. Real talk, like in me being true to this, trust and believe that I've experienced a host of issues in my relationship with my wife. But what I can also say and stand on is that I'm in a better relationship, a more banging relationship with my wife today than I have ever been. We've dealt with financial issues, communication issues, conflict management issues, sex and intimacy issues. But I've done the work, fam. Go to becomeabetterhusband.com. I got a 5-day challenge coming up next week. I want you to be in a room. If you're a husband and you want to improve the quality of your relationship, if you want to level up, if you want to get your needs met, go to becomeabetterhusband.com or comment husband challenge. I want to see you in a room, fam. It's time for you to get your needs met, but also to better understand how to meet hers. Peace out. I mean, you got your spouse second guessing himself, second guessing herself. You can have him or her comparing, trying to measure him or herself up against what it is that you're watching, what it is that you're seeing. You can actually have your spouse wondering whether or not he'll ever be able to satisfy you or she'll ever be able to satisfy you based off of your interest in certain things. And so you start to have expectations based off of what you see. And, and as a result, when your spouse is unable to meet those expectations, you feel defeated, you feel deflated, and you feel like, you're not measuring up or she's not measuring up. And it's a problem. And so, again, this stronghold of pornography, like if you find yourself in a space where you're addicted to it, where you're trying to hide it, where you're not being open and honest about having conversations about what your sexual desires are, like there's this secret affair that you got going on. I mean, people be having whole, numbers that they call and having relationships with, with virtual folks. And again, you might think that it's not cheating, but it is. It is. And so getting caught up over there in that space in fantasy world and believing it's your reality, that right there can keep your marriage stuck, keep it stagnant. And it could be a stronghold, y'all. So again, you want to make sure you're extremely careful. If you're starting to notice that you are hiding this thing, not communicating about what it is that you desire sexually, starting to see certain expectations go unmet and you find yourself meeting them in another way, specifically through visual stimulation or even direct engagement via porn, like it's a problem, fam. It's a problem. You want to make sure you definitely get that in check. And so again, pornography is number 3. It's number 3 when it comes to the strongholds. Number 4. Number 4 is substance use, y'all. Substance use. I've in working with both men and women, I've heard a number of wives lift up how substance use has impacted the quality of their relationship, the intimacy specifically because of hygiene issues. Like if you drink it all of the time, your breath starts to stink. You start to carry a certain body odor if you smoke it all of the time, and outside of your hygiene, you also got the coherence piece as well, and then you also got the volatility piece too. And so if you're, you know, whether it be drinking, whether it be smoking, using, whatever it is that's got you, in this addictive space where it's interfering with your way of life or it's interfering with the people around you, then you want to make sure you're paying attention to that. Because if you're not, then trust and believe it's having an impact, even if you're not necessarily addressing the impact. And so what I get concerned about is in working with couples, like, if you're unaware, like what's happening, and you're consistently doing it to the degree in which sometimes dudes even express that they want to stop, but because it's such a stronghold, there's something physiologically that's going on that has you in a place where you're coming back to it over and over and over again, even if you are seeing the impact. It's one thing to be unaware, but when your spouse makes you aware and yet you still do it, there's a problem, bro. There's a problem, sis. Again, when it comes to hygiene, that's one thing, but how you're showing up in the marriage, that's something else. That's something else. And even outside of the marriage, you got children too. And so what are you modeling in your household? Again, it can have a stronghold on your marriage, a stronghold over you, and it can keep your marriage stuck and stagnant. So be careful. Be careful, be mindful, be intentional about getting the help that's needed so that you don't find yourself in a space where you're just constantly struggling with this particular issue, y'all. Unforgiveness is another thing that it's really important that you pay attention to. When you're experiencing, especially longevity in your relationship, it's inevitable that somebody's going to be hurt. And so what happens when people get hurt is sometimes you hold on to that thing. And what ends up happening is that it becomes an insidious cancer in your marriage when after atonement takes place, after an apology and true accountability is present, yet you're still holding on to it based off of sometimes those childhood experiences, or it may be even based off of a repeated pattern of behavior from your spouse, you're still holding on to it. It can be a problem. It can be a cancer. And it can definitely inhibit the growth and keep you stuck and stagnant in your relationship. Now, I'm not encouraging you to just, give this blanket forgiveness automatically, no matter what's being done. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not encouraging that. But what I am saying is that, again, after the appropriate and proper steps have been taken, and that's talking about an apology, and that's talking about accountability, which requires action. Once that's done, and yet you still find yourself in a space where after you've allowed some time to pass and you've watched to see whether or not the steps of accountability are being taken, if you're witnessing it and yet you're still in a space where you're not forgiving, it's a stronghold. Like it's got you wrapped up. What's that all about, bruh? What's that all about, sis? Like you want to make sure that you're being, mindful and doing your work so that, again, you can show up in a relationship in the best way possible and you're not inhibited based off of your belief about what your partner might do based off of what they did in the past. You want to be free. You want to be free. You want to break free. You want to experience healness. And one of the necessary steps in order to do that is through being forgiving, is through trusting, is through leaning into a process of love and, again, embracing forgiveness. Another stronghold is pride and control. Pride and control. Man, yo, one of the things that I often say is that nobody has the monopoly on perspective. And I've seen it on too many occasions that men are my way or the highway. Women alike, it's my way or the highway. And it's that control piece. It's that control piece. And I do think that like once the control piece takes a stronghold in your relationship, you can definitely find yourself stuck because depending upon the type of person that you're in a marriage with, y'all can end up bumping heads and bucking and beefing and clashing and nobody's relenting. Nobody's giving in. Nobody's yielding. And so that can keep your marriage stuck and stagnant. And so you got to be careful that you don't get so wrapped up in your pride, so wrapped up in trying to control that you find yourself like honoring you to the degree in which you actually sacrifice your marriage. One question that we ask is, do you want to be right or do you want to be in relationship? And again, the relationship is bigger than just you. It's about both of y'all. And the impacts go beyond just you. It goes to your spouse as well too. And not just your spouse, but your family. And so don't allow pride and control to be a stronghold in your marriage. It will damage it, y'all. And again, I see it from both men and women. It will truly damage your marriage. The last one that I want to lift up is spiritual disconnection. Spiritual disconnection. Yes. This right here, if there's no connection in this space, then what ends up happening is the areas of communication, the area of conflict management, parenting, sex and intimacy, finances. Like if there's no alignment spiritually, if y'all don't both, I'm not saying agree, but have an understanding about where you all sit in your relationship with God, then there's going to be significant problems, fam. There will be. And I'm not even saying that y'all got to have the same religion. No. The same faith walk. No. Your relationship with God is your relationship with God. Let's be clear about that. But when I speak about spiritual disconnection, are y'all praying together? Are y'all meditating together? Are y'all having conversations? Are you even aware about what your spouse's relationship with God is? Like, are you connected in at that level? Are they asking you questions? Like, what's the level of spiritual intimacy that's present? If there is none, then again, that right there will keep you stagnant and keep you stuck. One of the primary reasons why is because the spiritual connection can serve as the fuel to push y'all forward. Don't miss that point, fam. It could be the impetus. It can be the fuel. It can be the seed. It can be the motivation, the inspiration to get y'all from point A to point B. And not just in your marriage, not just in your family, but in your life. This is one of them strongholds that you want to make sure you definitely deal with, address. Because if you don't, your marriage will stay stuck. Your marriage will stay stagnant. And y'all might end up, for real, just stepping away from each other.